said to have changed the course of an entire industry. But Mr. San Peppy did just that for two, ranching and cutting. In the 1960s, Gordon B. Howell was an American quarter horse breeder with equal interests in cutting and in racing. He had a pretty good stallion, Leo San, and a pretty good mare, Peppy Belle by Peppa. Their first foal, Peppy San, was born in 1959 and inducted into the American Quarter Horse Hall of Fame 40 years later. Their last romance produced Mr. San Peppy in 1968. Gordon asked Bubba Cassio to start Mr. San Peppy, but Bubba didn't have time and recommended cowboy Buster Welch to handle the sorrel colt's feisty temperament. Buster and Mr. San Peppy got along well enough that the colts never made it to the racetrack. Instead, Buster's son Greg rode Mr. San Peppy in the 1971 National Cutting Horse Association Futurity. They didn't win, but just a few months later, they claimed the NCHA Derby Open title. While Mr. San Peppy was getting started in cutting, the King Ranch in Texas sent about 10 mares each to 4 of the most famous stallions of the day, hoping that a good stallion prospect would come from one of the crosses. AQHA past president Stephen T.O. Kleberg, the great-great-grandson of the ranch's founder, says, "My dad told me that I wouldn't get what I wanted, and he was right. He told me there are lots of male horses, but only a few stallions." While waiting for the test foals to mature, T.O. went to a few cutting events and eventually saw Mr. San Peppy. After a few test breedings, the King Ranch was convinced of the stallion's merit and bought him in 1976. Between visits to the breeding shed that year, Mr. San Peppy won the NCHA World Championship and claimed the AQHA Senior Cutting World Championship. Winning the NCHA made him a cutting sire, T.O. says. Winning the AQHA World Championship made him an American quarter horse.